Okay, so today's video is going to be a little bit different. If you think I first though, if you think I do a good job, or if you think people need to hear what I have to say, uh, just ask that you like, share, subscribe. So, but I'm going to start with this. House Democrats sent a letter to Biden requesting he relinquish sole authority to launch nuclear weapons. Now, the reason that the president has the sole authority to launch nuclear weapons is because of the idea of mutually assured destruction. Nobody wants their country to be annihilated, so taking that away, I agree that Biden is he's not he's not all the way there. He's not even, my opinion, he doesn't even run the government anyway. He's he's not the one actually in charge. That much is clear. But they this is something that should not be even up for discussion. But with everything else, they'll probably end up doing it. So I don't have a whole lot to say about that, other than I hope they don't actually go through with that. Not because I think that Biden you know, is mentally there. I I, I don't think so. I don't think, my personal opinion, I don't think he's gonna last the whole 4 years. But who knows? But there's bigger things going on than that. Oh, I had to talk about this. The FBI official testifies no protesters charged with possessing firearms on Capitol grounds. So, the whole armed Capitol insurrection is based on nonsense. They're the FBI, the crooked FBI has already come out and said that that's not true. But this is still going to be the picture for the next 4 years. It's it's never going to stop. You know, they they're going to keep moving that football. Oh, it was March 4th. Now it's March 20th. They might as well say it's March 20th in 2024 and just save themselves some time. But whatever. I wanted to point this out too. This title's wrong. It should say Antifa clashes with Trump supporters. They had a rally, a march or whatever on Friday, and Antifa showed up and does what Antifa does, started attacking people, and it makes no sense because you know I thought that Antifa didn't like the Democrats. I thought they were against the Democrats. So why would they be opposed to Trump supporters walking down the street with Nancy Pelosi looking like a vampire or something? Well, she shreds the Constitution in half. uh, doesn't add up. But it wouldn't surprise me when it comes right down to it that secretly Antifa just works for the Democrats, and it definitely seems to be that way because only the far extremists actually go after anything with the Democrats. Like in Portland, they'll go after Democrats, but that's about it. But the bigger thing that I wanted to talk about was this was brought to my attention recently. Now, the Business Insider does a terrible job. Does a terrible job, but what else can you expect? Um, this it's this book, The Fourth Turning, and it it's basically the idea, and it's rooted in history, how every 80 years there's a crisis. It was 80 years ago for World War II. 80 years before that was the Civil War. 80 years before that was the American Revolution. And basically the idea is that we're coming up on the crisis phase of this whole thing. Now, basically every 80, the cycle is every 20 years is a new cycle. So, they go on to try to paint Trump as he was the Trump was a boomer, but so was Biden, or at least he's close enough. Sometime before, so sometime before 2025, America will pass through a great gate in history. The very survival of the nation will feel at stake. And, you know, that does sound very familiar. So, but there was a little bit more to this. They predicted a lot of the stuff that has happened. But here's the scary part that I think that people need to be aware of. How and Strauss foretold the nation could erupt into insurrection, civil violence, crack up geographically, or succumb to an authoritarian rule. Now, they tried to say that Trump was the authoritarian, but anybody who knows what authoritarian actually means knows that that's false. Biden more fits the role of an authoritarian, trying to enforce his but I'm not going to go too far into that. But basically, the idea is that we're on the edge, or we're right there for some great conflict, whatever that is going to look like. Could it be, with things the way that they're going, it's hard to tell because there's talk of secession. There's talk, and this book mentions all of this. It mentions secession. We've seen that coming up. Civil violence. We've been seeing that for a long time. Um, and succumbing to authoritarian rule. They say that that's exactly what happened under Trump, but that's not really what has happened. They try to point out an attempted coup, which we all know is bogus, and I just think that this is just where we're going, and if more states can, my personal opinion, if more states continue to push this idea of secession, you know, we're seeing it now all of a sudden with, you know, Texas is floating the idea. They're going to vote on it. And then you see what happens with uh, when Texas announced that they were getting rid of their mask mandate and doing all that stuff. And all the other red states were hurrying up and following suit with them. So, what do you think is going to happen when Texas does go on to secede? And I think it was Tim Pool recently. He was talking about in one of his videos how it's already Biden's not in control of the red states. It's only the blue states that actually follow what he says. You know, I know I just seen it today where Texas is going to finish up Trump's border wall despite Biden canceling it. So, you know, I think it's going to keep escalating and either either we're go, either we're going to see a real insurrection or we're going to see the United States crack up geographically. But I just hope that if they do decide to secede, that it can actually be done peacefully, and there doesn't have to be this great civil conflict. But by just by the way that book reads, it sounds like that's what's going to happen because it's always the climax of the crisis is always some big conflict, some big war. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it there.